It's so funny how this conversation is unfolding, because that was one of my questions, is like, is there like a common roadblock that you see that people deal with? Have you witnessed any of your clients just be unable to, move past a certain roadblock? Like, what would your advice be to, or
Yeah.
is there anything in common, or is everybody person, like you said, like a whole new adventure that's unique and different?
Huh. Well, it's very common for people to have a real aversion to marketing themselves, right?
Mm.
And to have all kinds of squirrely ideas, that go along with that, whether it's the imposter syndrome or whatever. That stuff is very common, and also really harsh, negative self-talk. I mean, partly
Mm.
it's the way we're taught. We're brainwashed in music school to focus on what's not working, right? And
Mhm.
often don't have any appreciation for what is working. And it's not that we have, dragons for teachers, but it is kind of the culture of the institutions that perpetuate that perfectionism, and kind of that we're never, you'll never be satisfied. But part of that is we're reaching for something beyond, and that makes sense, but there's an unhealthy aspect to this. And I always find this so fascinating, because someone can be graduated, like be gone 10 years from school, and they're still in this kind of student mindset, that ruthless thing, and also feeling like they need to be chasing validation from an external source. It's just very, very common. So the way it plays out for individuals, of course, is specific and subjective, and what tools will work for any one person. That's what's different from one to the next. But that soup of fear and, in a way, lack of self-trust, that seeking validation, all that stuff just is part of the territory.
I wanted to ask you before. I'm sorry, I'm stepping on your toes, Trevor.
Go for it.
I'll
Step
be doing
away.
this, but this is such a fascinating conversation that I've had with myself, in
Hmm.
my journal. We have a lot of like recent college grads or soon to be college grads that listen to this podcast. And like, what would you say to them that like, if their specific hang up is seeking that external validation,
Yeah.
like winning a competition, like what would you say to them?
Yeah. Well, this may seem like an odd place to start, but I often suggest to people get a small notebook, and they keep it next to their bedside. And at the end of every day, that they write down things that happened during the day that they noticed, that they appreciated. Like, I'm glad to be alive. It might have been a phrase that they heard somebody else play, but it also might have been a bird that they saw outside, or whatever. And I think it's so common that people get into this grind, that they're completely divorced from this feeling of being more fully alive. So in a way, you have to
Mm-hmm.
kind of open people up to that sense of gratitude, to see that life is a lot bigger than this one stinking competition that's coming up, right? It's a that kind of pressure. The other tactic this was just with a client who had an orchestral audition, and she didn't advance, but she did a lot better than previous times. And one of the things that we talked about as she was working towards the date of the audition is, it's so common to get in like this blinders mode, where there's nothing else except for that date, as if life doesn't go on past that. So part of it was just making sure, okay, what are you doing with these other projects? Because, they're still there, and you're not going to just, cave whatever happens. So that's part of it, like trying to see, even when we have an important audition or a concert, to see that this is part of like a trail of crumbs, right? It's the thing that we're in it for the long haul. And
Mhm.
any one competition, if you if you bomb it or if you do great, there's no such thing as the make or break thing. I would say that's maybe the biggest problem, that people have this fantasy, we all do, have this fantasy of, oh, the one break, and then everything is going to be, coming up roses, like that, like I will be on easy street. That's the fantasy. But well, don't want to be a downer here, but suffering is part of life, right? You
Heck
can
yeah.
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 So,
Let's go.
yeah, you can win a big job and that stuff is still going to be there and you're still going to have to work your butt off, and it's just and there's going to be disappointments and there's going to be fear. Like there's no like getting off easy. And I think that I see that mentality so often. A lot of musicians will work really hard up until, this the special point, and then they're just like crash because they don't
Mm,
have they don't have an ongoing commitment. Like this is my like a spiritual practice. Like, I meditate every morning, right? Like whatever that is, because that commitment to the ongoing work, that's the real thing.